Welcome back to another episode of Flawless Plan Garage, where today we are once again going to be working on my 1994 Buick Roadmaster station wagon, into which I am attempting to cram an LB7 6.6-liter Duramax turbo diesel and Allison transmission, which really don't fit. But as you were hopefully able to see last time, we pretty much have the chassis, rail, and big chassis fabrication completed. And before I wrapped all this up, I really wanted to add some strength. We're definitely going to be adding weight to this vehicle, adding, maybe 3 times the original amount of torque to this vehicle. So I wanted to add a little bit of strengthening and stiffening to the chassis if I could. That's what we're going to do today, because today's video is sponsored by Road Hugging Weight. Did you know original Buick Roadmaster only weighed 4,200 pounds? Well, we can't have that. We're going to fix that problem real good. Stay tuned. I felt like it'd be wise to add a little strength to this chassis, and I've been debating a bit where and how to do that. I had thought about making some kind of cross brace, but you'll see the floor is designed to actually drop, below. It drops kind of down into the chassis. So making any kind of cross brace would be pretty tough, and still having some kind of floor clearance. And I'm going to have to cut out enough of the floor for the drive shaft and transmission that I'd like to not have to cut more of that out and deal with more issues inside. So I wanted to focus on maybe just beefing the frame rails a little bit. And you can see the way the B-body chassis is built here. It's really just kind of folded steel that's joined. I think it's plug welded and then sealed. No, it's seam welded along through here. So my plan, flawless as ever, is just some angle iron. Some nice thick angle iron that I'm going to put on either the outer or the inner surface. I'm thinking probably the outer. That way I can bridge a couple of these seams, kind of plate over them. These seams in here, there's a much bigger gap. It'd be tough to get a nice smooth plate over those, and there's a bend on the inside down there. So I can get a little more distance if I come on the outside. And I think that'll nicely add a little strength, bridging this joint in a way similar to the bridge on the other side. So we're just going to do lateral outer reinforcement up here. Obviously, the main issue is that the body mounts still need to sit down all the way in. So I'm probably going to notch out around the body mounts with my reinforcement, because I don't want to raise the body, especially because if I raised it here, I have to raise it everywhere else too. How much I love working on desert cars. I suspect if I had done this the day after it left the factory, my results would have been the same. I mean, there's no rust, there's no scale, there's no nothing. It's just beautiful steel underneath a little dust. Anyway, interesting thing, I didn't know this about these old B-bodies. There's a hidden VIN here in the top of the frame rail. This is on the passenger side Kind of underneath the door, like underneath the front door for the passenger. So, kind of debating whether I want to cover that up or not. I might go ahead just for the sake of the strength. But a little piece of trivia for you. There's a hidden VIN on the frames of the old B-bodies on the passenger side, top of the frame rail. Couldn't see it under the dust. I suspect if there was any meaningful amount of rust on that frame, you might never be able to see that again. It's not stamped real deeply, but there it is. Alrighty, well, as usual, the prep takes more time, or is where most of the time needs to be spent versus the actual job. In this case, the job of welding it up, but I've got it pretty much ready to go on. The zinc weld-through primer is drying at the moment. Obviously just some rough cut slits so I can bend it a little bit to conform it to the shape. I also actually heated, and this section of the frame actually protruded just a little bit, and a little bit of a bulge in it. I think it's just from the stamping process when they knocked these holes in it that it had a little bulge. So I flattened that out so I can get good contact with the reinforcing piece. And as soon as everything dries up, I should be ready to weld this in. Now, I am going to go ahead. You saw that I made a small piece back here to go here. And I'll make sure that I kind of have this section all covered with a little bit of reinforcement. But my main focus here is really to add a little stiffness between the engine and the rear axle, because that's where I'm changing. I'm adding a lot of twisting force. This motor probably will be in the 800 foot-pounds of torque range. So I'm adding a lot of twisting force between the engine and the rear axle. Frankly, I'm not going to haul more than what this thing was rated to haul anyway. These were rated to haul 7,000 or 7,500 pounds, something like that. I'm not going to tow more than that. So I don't plan on reinforcing anything behind the axle. We'll get the tow hitch welded up. I did notice that this this little piece here between the rear frame rails, behind the bumpers, is pretty, I don't know, it's kind of flimsy. So I don't know, I'll think about maybe doing something across, but the tow bar itself is going to add quite a bit of rigidity back here, because that's going to be a I think 2x2 or 3x3 1/4-inch plate tube going across. So that's going to add quite a bit of strength there. And like I said, I don't think I really need to do anything with the frame rails back here. Well, that was a lot of work. I'm not sure I've ever done like that much welding on a single piece. Like, whatever that is, 5.5 feet. But all welded in. Hopefully I didn't already twist the frame into a pretzel with the heat. I tried to do it in sections and keep switching back and forth. So we'll see, but hopefully she's a bit stronger now. And the driver's side now. Oh man, that's a lot of welding. And a lot of times whacking my head into the lift. But at least my welding is improving a bit. And that should be it for the reinforcements. Well, not all the reinforcements, but the basic reinforcements. Let's take a look. On the part of the frame that's up, you know, kind of underneath the main part of the car there, I did fully weld those. And I did that not so much because I felt like it was needed for strength, but mostly because I didn't want any opportunity for moisture to get in behind. Obviously, I did use zinc primer between the layers of metal to try to help, you know, make sure that likelihood of rust in there was minimized. But ultimately, I repented of that decision to fully weld the entire thing. It just seemed like overkill even for me. So the rest of these pieces got stitch welded. As I mentioned before, I decided that it really wasn't necessary to add reinforcement in this section, since the opposite side here has so much, you know, it's triangulated pretty well by the other portions of the, whatever you want to call that, cross brace there. But I did end up adding this out here, even though, you know, I'm not going to be adding more force back here than stock, what these frames are rated for towing. But, you know, it's a while I'm in here thing, which is going to make this project take the rest of my life. So on both sides, from just in front of the tow hitch, not quite over the rear axle, to then all the way up to just underneath the, or just behind where the engine's going to go, up there in the front where the frame rails narrow in, has all been reinforced with 3/16 plate. Should add some strength to hopefully counter that little tiny bit of twisting force that diesel's going to put on this thing. Okay, so one of the little challenges that comes along with having such a wildly successful YouTube channel with millions of followers is there's bound to be some, you know, mild toxicity in the comments of people saying, "Oh, that welding, you're going to warp the frame. You're going to warp the frame." Well, I'll have you know that I warped the frame. Yeah, but just a little bit, just about 1/8 of an inch. But it drew in about 1/8 of an inch here. The front is definitely still kept solid and kept dimensionally solid by that, and that checked out okay. But we narrowed a little bit in the back here, so I'm going to fix that with this professional contraption right here. See, it's got a piece of scrap metal from the old frame, so I don't crush the wood. That makes it professional. All right, well, I didn't get that recorded because despite my best efforts, I still don't have 6 hands, including the one to, that clamp was really helpful to hold this. And you know, the plasticity of steel remains impressive to me, but though it took a few tries, we're good now. We're within a 1/16 back to the right width dimension. And when you get within a 1/16, that is called closer than it was when GM built it. Well, that is definitely the most welding I have ever done in a single phase of a project or on a single project in my life. I'm fairly certain that I went through 15 pounds of welding wire, in addition to the 50, 60 pounds of steel that got added to it. So yeah, if that hasn't fixed our dangerously underweight problem on this wagon, I don't know what will. Wait, actually, I do know what will. We'll stick a diesel in it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.